I solemnly swear that I will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.
Hi, everybody. Ron here from The Truth About Addiction. Beautiful day, sunny up in Queensland where I am, and hats off to all you poor people in Melbourne. Today we have a really special guest here, a person that I've known of for quite some time, and through my stepdaughter, adopted daughter, whatever you call her, she told me about Andrew. She's a comedian, and Andrew's doing good stuff, and I love his story, and I'll hand it over to Andrew, and welcome to The Truth About Addiction, my friend.
Thanks for having me, Ron. Yeah, it's great to have a chat with you, and yeah, it's still very surreal for me to be where I am at now, being able to do comedy, because I feel like I never would have done stand-up comedy and have the happy life I have now if I didn't go to prison for drugs.
Yeah, that's crazy, isn't
it?
Good.
Yeah. So it kind of spins me out, but just to kind of paint the picture for you of what it was like. I essentially was at uni when I was in my early 20s in Bathurst in New South Wales, and I was studying communications, and I went on a trip to Thailand, and I tried magic mushrooms, and I had such a good time on them that when I came back, I told my mate about them, and he started researching how to grow them. And next thing you know, we had a whole bunch of strains, and it would just be me and my friends eating magic mushrooms all the time and having a great time and fun parties. And over the course of many years, that went from me just selling recreationally some mushrooms to friends and friends of friends to it being this massive network, and me becoming a large scale supplier of magic mushrooms and acid, and then MDMA, and later cocaine and ketamine. So by the end, I was a one-stop shop of all kind of party drugs. And for a long time, particularly the first kind of 10 years, I kind of justified it in my head because I was such a gambling addict. I had a huge gambling addiction, and so that was just causing such a mess of my life that I needed to fund it somehow. And so I funded it through selling mostly magic mushrooms. And I think at the time, my view of the world was quite warped, in that I kind of justified in my head me selling mushrooms because I had such a good time when I was using mushrooms, and people that I was selling to would have such a good time, either, being out in nature or going to music festivals or whatever. They'll just have these very positive experiences. It wasn't like, some of these more sinister drugs like ice or heroin. And so I was having all these positive experiences on mushrooms, and they're illegal. They're a Class A drug. Meanwhile, we have poker machines on every pub corner in metropolitan New South Wales, and they destroy you, and they're legal, perfectly legal. You can do $10 a hit. So the laws in Australia, in New South Wales, didn't make sense to me. So I thought, well, if they don't make sense to me, why the hell would I obey them? So I just set up I had my own sense of right and wrong that I created in my head. And yeah, that kind of was the way things went for many years. I'd make a ton of money and it would all disappear just as quickly. And then, but the last kind of few years, it went from me just having kind of a coke habit that was manageable. So it was by the last 3 or 4 years, it was a full-blown cocaine addiction. I was doing like an ounce of coke a week, at least, up my nose, which meant I was not sleeping for 5 days at a time. Then I'd sleep for 2 days to recover, and that was my life for years. And I mean, there were times where I was just doing so much cocaine, I could feel my heart struggling. And so, look, I think if it wasn't for the cops smashing through my door and arresting me, I probably would have died of a heart attack at some point. I was just, I was just so unwell, physically and mentally. I was a mess by the end of it. So yes, it was the 4th of June, 2021 that the cops raided my house, and I got sent to Parklea prison for 2 months. Then I got moved to Long Bay jail, where I spent 2 months there. Then I eventually got bail and was under house arrest for quite a long time at my parents' place. And then my bail rules were relaxed so I could work a job, and that also enabled me to start doing stand-up comedy. And so I started doing that most nights of the week while I was on bail, and that ended up being part of our argument in court that demonstrated that I had rehabilitated myself through not only through having a job, doing stand-up comedy, doing clean piss tests, and also being involved in AOD counselling. All these were enough to demonstrate to the judge that there wasn't going to be a huge benefit to society in sending me back to prison. So, it was quite incredible. I got very lucky with the judge. I mean, you hear people say all the time, there's no truth in sentencing. I ended up getting sentenced to an intensive corrections order, which was pretty incredible because of the fact that I was on 2 large commercial drug supply charges for mushrooms and acid. So, I got sentenced in July 2022. So what's that? It's been just over a year of my ICO. I had to do 200 hours community service, which I smashed out, and so I've got a year and a half left to go on that sentence. But now I've been drug free for 2 years since my house got raided on the 4th of June 2021, and my life has never been better.
Yeah, beautiful. It's really funny, I don't know if you know much about my story, but I'm a career criminal.
Yeah.
I grew up as a gangster. I shot my first man at 16,
but I've seen some old photos of you, Ron. You looked pretty jacked back in the day.
Yeah, I did a little bit of training every now and again. Yeah, but my attitude was the same as yours. The system was so broken.
Yeah.
That I didn't respect the law at all, because I was like, okay, alcohol destroyed everybody I knew's family. Gambling. My father was a gambler. We ate fucking bread and dripping. We ate the fat that came out of the old meat on top of bread for food because we had no money.
Yeah.
Because he was a gambler, and he went on to become a gambling casino owner, illegal casino owner, and an underworld gangster and painter and dog. But there's not much difference. Our upbringings are completely different, but the attitude was exactly the same.
Yeah.
It was a hypocritical fucking system that I thought, fuck you,
That's it. The rules don't make sense, so why would I follow them? I'm gonna make my own rules, which makes sense to me. That seems to be a common theme.
As I said, it was miles apart, but we were fucking parallel together.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of similarities where I stopped selling heroin and that when I got clean, but I still imported cocaine.
Yeah.
Because to me, cocaine was a recreational drug.
Yeah.
It wasn't harming anybody.
Yeah.
Now, when Wendell Saylor got arrested with it, it was a fucking what do they call it? A party drug or something,
Yeah.
When I got arrested with it, it was a fucking narcotic. It was killing people. So there's 2 laws for whatever the system may be, for the rich and the poor, I called it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I understand that part of what you're saying there. That, it's easy to justify in our head what we're doing. But when you said that you're a gambler, my heart jumped a beat, because you can only put so much coke up your nose a day, but you can put a lot of money in a fucking poker machine.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it was just so wasteful for so long, and I think it was all part of the same cycle. I was living a very hollow life where I didn't feel good, and so I'd try to escape that and I was so lonely, I would just try and escape that through either gambling to distract me, or just sitting on the pokies, or drugs. Anytime I had any feelings, whether they be good or bad, I would constantly go down the rabbit hole of cocaine. Just so I was constantly numbed out to anything, which meant I never really felt any feelings for a long time.
Yeah. And that becomes a way of life. And then we say, I'm using to be normal.
Yeah.
I only used to be normal.
Yeah.
Like normal's not detached, disconnected, and dysfunctional. Like that's not normal, even though, in active addiction, we believe it is normal. And it's such an insidious lifestyle and such an insidious disease, this disease of drug addiction. And gambling's part of the drug addiction. Porno is part of the addiction, part of the addiction. I don't like using the word drug. I just call it addiction, like I can use anything to change the way I feel. I'll use it, and then I'll abuse it until it doesn't work anymore. Then I'll squeeze it a little bit more, and then I'll find something different.
Yeah.
Also,
Yeah.
I'll try two. You know, with me, it'll be get on the drugs and the sex.
Yeah.
And when I gambled, I stopped gambling really early because, as I said, my dad was a gambler.
Yeah.
And I just seen the destruction it caused in our home, you know, the violence, the mood swings. My father's moods were fucking so bad. You know, but I don't know about you, Andrew. When I gambled, whether I won or lost, it didn't really change the way I felt. I still walked out feeling empty.
Yeah.
Even when I won.
Yeah. It might have solved some financial problems for a temporary while, but I didn't really feel much better about it. But also, like, those problems never would have been there if I wasn't gambling in the first place, right? So, like, just thinking about like the amount of money that I pissed away gambling versus how much like I overwon, it's just like a tiny fraction.
Yeah.
And you know, it wasn't really there to try and win money because I was making so much money from drugs. If I had just sat there at home, I would have had mountains and mountains of cash. But it was just something to just escape, help me to escape who I was. I didn't like the person that I was, and so it was just anything to take my mind off that.
Yeah.
And you know, that's a big thing of why, you know, cocaine was why my cocaine usage got so out of control is because I just hated the man that I was. And so just anytime I could, I was just shoving coke up my nose to numb me out. And that's why when I got taken to prison and had to sober up and get off drugs, it's weird how feeling shit actually felt good, like, because I'd been so numb, and anytime I felt shit, I would just escape into cocaine for so long that walking around the yard and having my whole life as a mess and just feeling like shit felt good, because it was just felt nice to feel something again for once in so long. And to remember, like, you're meant to feel like shit. You're supposed to feel these things because they're telling you something about your life, right? Yeah. So yeah, when I suddenly had to face these feelings that were so raw and strong after avoiding them for so long, it was confronting, but it felt good to be like, oh yeah, that's what it feels like to feel like shit. And then that made me sit down and think, okay, well, I don't like this feeling. What am I going to do about it? And that's when I started to really make my plan to rehabilitate myself and redeem myself when I got out of prison, right? And so, yeah, I was fortunate enough to have that time that just forced me to sober up and ask myself some hard questions that I'd avoided doing for so long. And that's put me on the positive path that I am now.
Okay, a question I've got to ask this question because I went to prison at 17 years of age.
Wow.
In Pentridge in 1971 when jail was pretty nasty.
Yeah, it would have been a hard time.
Yeah. And you know, I seen my first man get stabbed at 17 in a yard. I seen my first guy get anally fucking abused, you know, like you in the yard, like those days you came into your cell at 7 a.m. in the morning and you were locked back in your cell at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Mm.
The yard was maybe 10 meters by 15 meters back down to 2 meters, like a wedge. So you'd have 40 blokes in this little, it was toilets, no doors on the toilet. So you shit on the toilet and you use newspaper to wipe your ass. There's no toilet paper. You showered in the yard where there was no door. So you showered in front of the 40 guys. And yeah, it was quite horrific, you know. And for me, I'm still scarred by it.
Yeah.
I went back to Pentridge last year as a guest.
Well, it's like a tourist spot now or something.
Mate. Yeah. I've got my book signing down there on the 27th of August.
Yeah, wow. Okay. That's not far away. What's that?
No, mate.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2 months, max, not even 2 months. Yeah, my book's at print today. It's really exciting.
That's awesome, mate.
I finished writing it in 2007. I've been sitting on it since.
Holy shit. Well,
because I was scared.
Yeah. Why were you scared?
Scared of what people would think.
Yeah.
My book's very confrontational. It's about my father was a sexual predator to my sister, and I've written about that. My father was violent to my mother. I've written about that. My father shot at me for slamming the door of the car. He fired 2 shots at me out of a 45 for slamming his fucking door.
What a psycho.
He was a complete psychopath. Yeah, he was. He was violent. You know, he bashed me so bad that, you know, I'd have to get stitches in my head where he just kicked the fucking shit out of me as a 14-year-old boy. You know, he was 6 foot. I was 5'6", you know. He was, you know, probably 105 kilos. I was probably 55 kilos, you know, like he was just a horrible human being.
Bully. Yeah.
Yeah, just a complete psychopath.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so yeah, I went back to Pentridge and I went through the tour, and I haven't been there for 50 years. And the feelings I got were unbelievable. And the memory was like, as you go up here to the left here, there's a chain there on that door there. And here you go through here, there's 5 yards, there's the condemned yard, the trial yard, the men's yard, and the people that take me through the tour just went like, are you serious? Like it's 50 years since I've been there. I took to the cell where I got bashed by the prison officers and said, you know, this is where I got bashed in cell fucking 69, you know, in 1972, I got bashed in that cell. And it was just freaky. So what was it like for you, the guy that really didn't grow up in that thing, to walk into prison for the first time? When you're in the prison van on your way from the local cells going to prison, were the other prisoners in the van with you?
Yeah, I was in a transport truck with another guy who ended up being a good friend of mine. He ended up being my cellmate in like 5 different prison wings, and we're really close. And he was going to prison for the first time as well. And so I was very lucky to have him because we kind of had each other's back from pretty much the day one. And yeah, look, I think I'd been up for about 3 days on cocaine when I got arrested. So I think that kind of helped me in that I was still fucked up when I was on my way to prison. So I didn't really have too much time to think about, like, process what mess I was coming into. And then the first 2 weeks I was in quarantine because of COVID. So I think that kind of helped with the transition, is that I was stuck. The first 2 weeks I was stuck in my cell for 23 and a half hours a day. I didn't have a TV or any books or anything for the first 10 days. So I was just kind of stuck in my own thoughts, which was not a great place to be for your mental health. But when you had the half an hour out of your cell, I was able to interact with other inmates and get a kind of a bit of a sense of what it was going to be like in the regular prison wings, and at least get to know a couple of guys before we went into the main yards. So that kind of helped. But you know, you could hear at night just the noise from the main wings, and you're thinking like, fuck, well, I've got no idea what I'm walking into. I'm just a fucking mushroom dealer from Surrey Hills that's got no idea about. I don't know anyone.
Yeah.
But it ended up being fine. People were very decent to me. I think it was a combination between already knowing a couple of guys from when I'd been in that first 2 weeks in quarantine. So at least I had a few guys to socialize with, but then because guys knew that I was in there for mushrooms, people thought that was funny. So yeah, I got treated great pretty much everywhere I went. I know there's a lot of guys that don't have great times in prison, and you know, you hear all the horror stories, but I was very fortunate in that I was treated well by everyone, both at Parkley and at Long Bay.
Yeah. What part of Long Bay did you go to?
I was in Long Bay Hospital,
Okay, yep.
LBH Long Bay Hospital 2 in 12 wing. So I was on like the top level.
You're in the MR. Oh, you're in the MRC 12 wing. Yep. Okay.
So yeah, so
3 levels, 3 tier.
That's right. So I was on the top level.
Yep.
And Yeah, I got lucky with most of my cellies were good fellas that I got along with. I mean, the only guy I didn't really get along with was just because he was like a massive clean freak and insisted on watching Home and Away every night. But I mean, that's pretty minor in the scheme of things. Yeah, I worked a job at Parkley in the packaging factory at one stage, and that was kind of when I was getting into quite a positive rhythm in prison. I was kind of like used to a schedule, and I thought, oh, I can handle this. But then it was about a week after I started to get into a really positive rhythm that I got moved to Parkley, and I mean just to Long Bay, and I mean that's something which that kind of takes the wind out of your sails when you get moved prisons, because you get to know people, you start to get into a good rhythm, you're in a reasonable headspace, and then bang, you're on a truck to some other prison. I didn't even know which prison I was going to. And then you're like, fuck, I'm going to have to start. I'm starting again from scratch.
Yeah. All your security's gone. All the unknowns are in front of you. All the fears come up, the fear of the unknown.
Yeah, it's the worst feeling in the world. So, yeah, you just got to start all over again thinking, fuck, like, what if people... What if I'm going to have a harder time in this yard? What if people don't like me? Yeah, fuck. You know, you don't know what's going to go on. But I was very lucky. First day in the yard at Long Bay, this bloke came up to me and he's like, "Mate, I know you." And I was like, "No, you don't, mate." And then he was like, "Mate, I know you. You used to shout me beers at the Columbian whenever you won money on the pokies."
Oh, far out. Yeah, far out. Yeah.
And so, I never won money from gambling, really, but I I did get lucky in another way.
What a friend.
Yeah, so this guy ended up being very well connected in the yard at Long Bay, and next thing you know, I got hooked up with a sandwich press and a kettle, and I was vouched for in the yard. So that made my stay a lot more manageable.
As we touched on it, it's not what you know, it's who you know.
That's right. Yeah,
Especially
but here I
in that
was
system.
thinking, sorry.
Especially in that system.
Exactly right. Exactly right. So yeah, here I was thinking I wasn't going to know anyone, and then yeah, I was fortunate for that. Yeah, that really helped me out at Long Bay.
Very traumatic experience, but going to prison, people don't understand whether it's for 2 months, whether it's for 4 months, whether it's for 10 years. It has a scarring, lasting effect that lasts forever.
Yeah,
it really does. Like.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. I was only in there for 4 months, but it was enough to completely change my life. And, when I was doing 4 months, I was in remand, so I hadn't been sentenced yet. And at that point, I thought I was going to be in there for years. So, there was no end date on how long I was going to be in there. I didn't know I was going to be in there for only 4 months. And, I lost my fiance, I lost my dogs, they got rehomes, I lost my home, my business. So, there was a lot more than just 4 months in prison. I lost pretty much the life that I had previously. And, that all happened when I was locked up. And so, it's just like bad news after bad news after bad news. It's just a lot of like blows to take in a situation where you're locked up and you feel totally powerless. You can't do anything. And so, that feeling of just your life going to shit and you're just being stuck in a prison and having no power to do anything about it is horrible.
Yeah.
It's enough to drive you mad. And so, you just have to try and use the resources you have within you to try and stay positive and survive it. And I guess that's a time when you learn a lot about yourself and what you're made of. And luckily, I found that I had a lot of resources within me to survive this, come out the other end of it, and to try and do something more positive with my life. I mean, obviously, I don't want to gloss over the fact that I am very fortunate that I had a big network of family and friends that stuck by me and supported me when I got out, and that's made an absolutely massive difference in my ability to turn things around. There are a lot of guys that don't have that.
Yep.
And if I went to prison and got out and didn't have a support network, I don't think I would have stopped crime. I don't think there would have been really no reason for me to, because going to prison didn't make me want to stop being a criminal. It was the impact of my time in prison on the people I love. That's the thing that stopped me.
That's nice. That's nice. It's true, mate. It's so nice. Because I was the guy that came out to nothing. No family, no job, no future, no past. And it's it's testimony still to your character that you had a lot of courage, because it takes a lot of courage to come out of prison. Because once you've been to prison, I found from a lot of people, because I have a lot of experience with prison, that once they become there the first time, the tigers and lions have gone. They're all dissipated, you know, they're all gone. So your fear's gone of prison.
Yeah.
So it becomes a way of life.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And a revolving door.
Yeah.
Even that 4 months you were there, you would have seen guys get out and come back in that 4 months.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, in the yard at Long Bay, so I was in the yard with like 80 guys, and I think out of 80, there were only me and one other guy that were in there for the first time. Everyone else were repeat customers, you know, second, third, fourth, fifth time in prison. And it just opened my eyes about the fact that for so many guys, it just becomes a cycle.
I was trapped in it for 20 years. Well, I was trapped in it from 71 till 81. Then I had a spell from 82. I had a spell from 82 to 2002. So I had 20 years out. Yeah. Now I've had 20 years out again. You know, I haven't been out of jail 20 years. I mean, 20 years since my last crime. I've only been out of jail 11 years again.
Yeah.
No, but I did big sentences, fucking horrible sentences. 8 years straight in maximum security because I never went to farms and that. And it does damage, mate. It really does damage. What you said I love is what we lost. I lost watching my daughter grow up. From the age of 6 to 16, I missed it. You know, that's my regret. You know, that's the regret I can never change. I lost my standing in the community because no one knew I was an ex-criminal. You know, they all knew me as Ron the property developer, Ron the jeweler, Ron that donated to charities, went and helped people. And then I got involved back in crime through old associates. I went back and I made the same mistake expecting different results. And that's so easy to do, you know. I'll get away with this time. I'm smarter. I'm blah, blah, blah. And, you know, I went back to prison, and what it did, it gave me time to really reassess my values of what I wanted out of this life. And what I didn't want was to be a fucking loser in jail, selling drugs, harming people, because I never looked at selling drugs as harming people.
No,
ever.
Neither.
Ever. It's their choice. They're buying it, because I never ever blamed anybody for my drug addiction.
Yep.
I'm actually doing a podcast tomorrow with the guy that sold me my first shot of heroin in 1974. That's fucking crazy, isn't it? I'm doing a podcast with him tomorrow. I'll get him to come and see your show. He's on the Goldie.
Yeah, great. Yeah,
he's a good mate. We're good mates. It's funny.
It is funny.
he chased me up because I'm doing the podcast now. He chased me up about 8 months ago. He goes, "Oh, wow, you know, I can't believe you're still alive. I followed you getting arrested, and we've been communicating. I went down and had dinner with him. He's got a son who's got autism, and him and his son and I went out for dinner. It was just, mate, it's just so nice."
But you're not thinking also, there's not part of you that's like, oh, by the way, you know, you gave me my first taste of heroin. Fuck you.
No, mate, because if it hadn't been him, it would have been someone else.
Yeah, okay.
That's the truth. The truth is, I was a junkie waiting to happen.
Yeah. Because
I never felt comfortable with myself. Drugs, to me, gave me relief from the pain and suffering that I felt inside. You know, I don't know about you, but the first time I took drugs, I was like, oh, wow, this is so good. And it must have been the same experience with you with the mushrooms.
Absolutely.
It gave you something that was lacking. See, it's not what drugs do for us. It's what drugs don't do for us. They don't give us fear. They don't give us fucking all the anxieties. They take away all that stuff. So what they do for us is they give us security. So why was I insecure? So that's what I had to deal with. Why did I take drugs? The drugs aren't the problem. I'm the problem.
Yeah.
I have a thinking problem. And my brain is so active and so negative. You know, my brain should tell me to do shit, mate, that you wouldn't tell a farmer, and I still trust it. You know, it was like craziness.
Yeah. I found with me doing the first time I ever did stand-up comedy in front of a crowd, and I did well. I got such a buzz off it that I felt like I was on cocaine.
Yep.
I got such a rush out of it, and that was quite dangerous for me. Luckily, I had to go home for my curfew. Otherwise, I might have been trying to chase coke around to keep the fucking feeling going. But what I noticed then was like with this, I have an addictive personality, like a lot of us do, and so I was just using that in a negative way, and feeding it into negative addictions, drugs and gambling.
Yep.
But what I have discovered is that having an addictive personality can also be a superpower if you just use it for good, right? So I'm addicted to comedy. I do shows 4 or 5 nights a week, and I love it. That's my addiction now, going out and making rooms full of strangers laugh.
Yep.
And that gives me such purpose and such a buzz. And so, it took a lot of pain and a lot of time for me to get there and to have that realization. But now I'm so happy that I have, because I get to live my dream every day of the week, basically.
Yep.
I'm happy to say, yeah, I'm a comedy addict. That's a healthy addiction. That's an addiction which brings joy to other people and brings joy to my soul. And so I guess, yeah, it's not all doom and gloom for having an addictive personality. You just got to find the positive outlets for it.
100%, mate. I was laughing before I come on to talk to you now. I did a podcast with a guy just before. He's 4 months clean.
Yeah.
And it sounds really fucking weird, and it's just such a beautiful thing. He heard my podcast when I did one with the Fallon Show about my life story. That inspired him to get clean. He's been clean for 8 weeks.
Wow. It's pretty cool to hear that.
Really
right?
nice gift. See, I'm addicted to recovery. I'm addicted to helping people.
Yeah.
That's my addiction today. My addiction is helping people. I get up at 8 o'clock in the morning. I go on Zoom and I help people in recovery. Then I do podcasts. Tonight I'll go to an NA meeting. I'm writing another book about recovery. I'm writing another book about the second half of my life. And everything's about recovery. I'm addicted to recovery. And as you said, I have an addictive personality.
Yep.
I've just got to find my superpower to go into the right channel.
That's right. Yeah. Because, I mean, you can't, even with something like that, you're going out and helping people. You can't, even if you're addicted to it, you can't really overdo it, right? Because it's just fills your soul so much to just be out there doing that. I find, this just gives me such energy from it. It doesn't drain me. People are like, isn't it just tiring to go out and do shows 4, 5, 6 nights a week? I'm like, no, because it's my purpose. It's my favorite thing in the world to do.
It pumps you. It fulfills you. Whatever that hole was that we had in us, that I call it the addiction, the hole. Yeah. We try to fill it from the outside. You're filling it from the inside now.
Yeah.
And you're making people happy.
Yes.
Laughter's the greatest fucking medicine, mate. I don't care what anyone says.
Absolutely, Ron. I get so many messages from people about my comedy, either live or from videos, about how much it's helped them, particularly when they're in a tough spot in their life. And that's what just keeps reinforcing for me that I'm doing something worthwhile.
I don't know, I seen something with you the other day. It was quite funny. I don't usually research anyone I do podcasts with, because I like to have the same reaction as the audience has.
Yep.
I seen something on the Vivid show, and I fucking laughed, and it was so nice, you know. The numbers were down on Vivid, you know, who wants to buy.
Yeah.
It was a really good little line. It was like, fuck yeah, I like that, you know, because
Thank you, mate. Yes, for your audience, just so they know. So I do a joke on stage about the Vivid Light Festival in Sydney and how last year numbers were down for Vivid. Not as many people went as previous years. And that when it was all over, City of Sydney sat down with the organisers of Vivid and tried to figure out why there was less people there. And they blamed COVID, monkeypox, the weather, whatever. But no one in the room pointed out the most obvious answer, that they locked up the guy that was selling half a Sydney magic mushrooms.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
It's plausible.
Yes. Well, because, I mean, that's a lot of my jokes came from real life, because I used to have such a spike in winter of so many people would come and buy mushrooms off me to go to the Vivid Light Festival.
Yep.
So when I then discovered that numbers were down, it was like, oh, well, must be because the mushroom guy got locked up.
The mushroom guy got taken off the market. government's just pissed off they haven't worked out a way of taxing it. As soon as they do, they'll be fucking selling them themselves.
That's right. Well, I mean, now they're legalizing mushrooms and MDMA for medicinal use. So, look, that's helped me to also kind of, I guess, reinforce in my head that what I was doing was illegal, but it wasn't evil. I don't consider myself to be an evil guy. I was just trying to help people to have fun, and have just a functional drug use. But some of these drugs people can lose their way, and I think the more that we start to treat drugs as a health thing, as a health concern, and not
as a crime,
from a criminal perspective, I think that's just going to help people to be able to destigmatize it and talk about their problems and get it all out there and actually get help, rather than the very backward system that we have now.
The moral deficiency that you're a fucking scumbag, that you'll always be a scumbag. Once a junkie, always a junkie. All those lies that we're taught as young people has been so detrimental to mental health of males and females in our country. I'm only talking about our country. Don't worry about America. I lived in America. I know how fucked they are over there. I've been talking to people this morning. And the sad part is we follow behind America. Now, they've got a fentanyl fucking problem in America that's killing so many people. It's not funny.
Yeah, I've been reading about it. It's not good.
They've got zombie cities. Mate, it will come. Build it and it will come. It's all about profit. I'm a bit old school. I still think they should legalize all drugs.
I agree. I think so too.
Take the criminality and take the fun out of it.
Yep. And I don't think that there are people, I mean, the narrative that if you legalize all drugs, that someone who's never done heroin in their life is suddenly going to go, oh, it's legal now, I'm going to go try heroin. Like, I don't buy that,
Yeah. I had a guy say the other day, oh, they're going to legalize marijuana. I'm scared I might relapse, right? And I said, it's always been legal in my world.
Yeah.
Heroin was legal in my world.
Right.
Everything was legal in my world because
the rules
nothing was illegal until you got caught.
Yes. Yeah, true.
Nothing was illegal until you got arrested with it.
Yeah.
And I didn't, I didn't care if it was legal or wasn't legal. I just used it.
Yeah.
But I did start using it because it was naughty. That's the truth. I did like being a rebel without a clue. And I liked the money. And if you took the money out of it, how many drug dealers would stop selling dope?
So many.
There's no fucking profit in it.
Yeah.
If you can go and buy an ounce of pot off the government for $30, or come and pay 300 off me. I don't know if it's enough for 300, probably more than that these days. But, why would I pay 300 off you, who might beat me up and rob me, when I can go and give it to a government official and get fucking the same product?
Exactly. Right.
Just doesn't make any sense. You take the criminality, you're taking the street violence off the streets, you're taking the fucking gangs off the street, the bikers, this, the blah, 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 blah. And, we'd probably have to get back to a decent sort of civilization where people cared about each other, But we can't change the world. All we can do is change ourselves. And by doing what we're doing now, somebody might be sitting back somewhere and go like, oh, wow, I listened to that Andrew story and I relate to that. And that's...
Well, yeah, I get that a fair bit from various podcasts that I've been on. People, there's something that resonates with them from their own story, and their own, I guess, battles with addiction and setbacks. And that's cool to just think that, my silly story can help a couple of people. I get so much fulfillment out of, talking about my mess of a life and how I've kind of turned things around, and also by just doing comedy and making people laugh. Like I truly believe that laughter can help save a life. I think that sometimes just having a bit of a laugh and reminding that life is supposed to be fun and worth living can make such a huge difference. So that's why as soon as I started doing comedy, I knew that this was what I was put on this earth to do, which is just make people laugh.
Right. Something funny. I remember when I first went to rehab in 1981, and I'd spent the last 10 years in prison and active addiction. And I was in this rehab and I was having belly laughs and tears running in my eyes that I hadn't done for fucking 10 years. and just remembering how good it felt to laugh.
Yes.
You know,
Yes. It's very therapeutic.
I never laughed when I was using.
Mm.
When I was
Yep.
full of drugs, I never felt nothing.
No.
Good, bad, or indifferent. I never felt nothing.
No, you can't laugh, can you? No.
Disconnection.
Yeah.
Disconnection. With my brain and my soul, there was no connection. My heart was dead. And laughter I believe laughter makes your heart fucking beat. You know, that's why, you know, it's really, I think it's wonderful what you're doing. I think it's incredibly brave and I'm not kissing you on the arse, incredibly intelligent to realise after the amount of time you spend in prison that isn't what you fucking wanted.
Mm.
It takes a big man to go like, yeah, okay, the money was good and my life was shit, but a lot of people go, yeah, but I'm prepared to take the jail sentences because I really want that shit life still.
Yeah.
You know, because we live in the lie of crime. The lie,
Yes.
I call it the lie of crime. That's what my book's called. We live in the lie of crime. It's not a life, it's a lie. If only I had this car, my life would be better. If I traveled the world, I did all this, I did all that, like, mate, guys that do a lot of jail. My mate, John Killick, the writer.
Yes.
He spent over 30 years in prison.
Yeah.
If he had an average job paying an average wage, he would have made 10 times more money than he ever made doing armed hold-ups.
Absolutely.
My mate Russell, he talks about it all the time. Work that he was earning about fucking 30,000 a year.
Yeah.
The amount of time he spent in jail, you get that on the dole.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so it wasn't successful.
Oh, absolutely. Man, I was so wasteful with the money I made just from shoving it up my nose and gambling and just wasting it on expensive restaurants and all this kind of shit that I didn't need. And, now I make fuck all doing stand-up comedy, but I'm so much happier and my life is not that different. Yeah, I don't go out to fancy dinners, but my life is really not that different. And I feel so much better about what I'm doing with my life and who I am as a person. So yeah, when I got out, I was so bored of just being a criminal and living this lie of a life and just the person I was. I was like, I just got to go do something different. Right? And so, yeah, I guess I felt that there was just something in me saying, you just got to go out there and do something more positive with your life. And I started doing comedy, and now it's just improved my quality of life so much just doing this. And I get to do my favorite thing in the world every day, and it's going well, and there's a trajectory there for me to have a career in it in a few years. So I'll just keep riding that wave. But
the network of people you're meeting now, I'm not bagging anybody, but they're not scumbags whose lives are going nowhere.
Not at all. No, they're all such amazing, giving people. I found the comedy community to be so welcoming of me, because I was like, I'm going to get on stage and start talking about prison and my arrest. And, for me, that was quite therapeutic to be able to go out there and make jokes about me getting tackled by the Raptor squad and whatever. It was just something I needed to get out. But I found the comedy community to be so welcoming of me and supportive, and could see that this was a huge thing for me in terms of rehabilitating myself. And that has enriched my life so much to have these amazing people in my life.
Yeah. I know a few comedians, and a lot of them talk about their life, and it is therapeutic.
Yeah.
If you went to a 12-step program, they'd make you write about your life. There's no difference. Yeah. And you're getting up sharing this 3 or 4 or 5 times a week.
Yes.
So you're pumping it out there. You're actually taking care of the demons. And I believe that our secrets die in the light of day.
Mm.
So when we expose our secrets to the public, that's like my book, it fucking loses its power. We don't have shame, guilt, and remorse anymore.
Yes.
We're not worried about judgment.
That's what I had a crossroads moment when I was in prison, Ron, where I thought either I get out and I try and pretend that this whole prison thing and the drugs never happened, and try and get a white collar job and just move on with my life and try and sweep it under the rug. Yeah. Or I can go out there and go on stage every night and just say, hey, I'm a former drug dealer that went to prison for mushrooms and acid and MDMA, and make jokes about it and own it on stage every night. And I thought, that is such an insane idea. I bet it's going to work.
Yeah, and it has.
Yeah.
It has, you know what I mean? Like the reality is it has, you know. But I don't have any doubt that what you're doing is therapeutic to other people as well.
Yeah.
And I believe that we can only keep what we've got by giving it away. I believe the whole gift of life is to keep giving. The more I give, the more I receive.
Yeah.
Everything I have today has been a direct result of me helping other people. It's fucking wild, you know. I live the life, you know, and I've lived the life of a rock star without the bad music for a long time.
Mm.
You know, I have a beautiful family. You know, I have 8 kids.
That's wild. Yeah.
It's, you know, and ranging from fucking a child that was born in 1972, and I have a 3-year-old who's 4 this month.
Wow.
You know, I've got 5 different mothers, big deal. But you know, I'm a good dad. I wasn't a great husband, but I'm a good husband today. Because today I don't have all that crime and bullshit life that goes with crime. Because you know yourself, when you're living that life, you know, hookers, this massage parlors, that, you know, spending money, being the big shot. Like, man, that's so boring.
Yeah. And it's
I
just
find
a
it boring.
it's a hollow way to live, isn't it?
Yeah, I find it just boring today. I really find crime, and you know, I hear guys come on the internet and boasting about it, and I think, man, are you serious? I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed of my life, you know, as far as the choices I made were really bad. The choices I make today are really fucking good, you know. Now, I choose today to be a loving human being that's a human giving, not a human taking.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm taking drugs, man, I'm a human taker.
Yeah.
I take souls, man. I just want, my girlfriends are hostages. My friends are assets.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not an asset to me, I don't want you as my friend. You know, if you're not buying or selling or fucking doing something that's gonna,
then you're no good to you. Yeah. See you later.
yeah. And today, you know, I took my 7-year-old boy down to a park last week, and we gave warm clothes out. We got some jumpers made. My Truth About Addiction logo jumpers made. We went down and we gave them to homeless people.
That's
and
great.
I did that for the main reason that I want my son to see that not everybody has his life.
Yeah.
And, you know, he was so happy. You know, we made up food parcels and gave him out. And he was like, Dad, can we find some more homeless people? I said, mate,
That's really cool. Good on him.
They're really easy to find, mate, you know. And my little boy's really good because he's been taught not to take things for granted, and that the gift is in giving, you know. And I think it's really important for anyone who's listening to understand that it's not what you take out of this world, it's what you give. Now, legacy has to be, he was a nice guy. He made some mistakes, big deal.
Yep.
Deal.
I have found that since I've been on this positive path, since I got out of prison and started doing comedy, that I'm constantly getting signs that that I'm on the right path. Like the more doors keep opening, and I keep getting reminders that this is in a way that I've never felt in my life. Yeah, things keep happening that keep saying to me that I'm finally on the right path. And so I think there's a lot to be said for you finding out what is that right positive path for you, and when you find it and when you get on it, the universe will keep telling you. There'll be signs along the way.
Yeah, 100%. It becomes easy.
Yeah,
it does. It just doors open, as you said. The things that I believe are my higher powers will just happen.
Yeah.
The things that I struggle with seem to be my will, and they don't sort of smoothly run the way I want them to run. Mate, we're going to wind up soon, but what I want you to do is I want you to plug your shows, because I'm going to come down to Brisbane to see you next week.
Great. So I am doing my solo show in Brisbane on Thursday, the 20th of July at Good Chat Comedy Club. So that's on at 7 p.m, I believe. You can get tickets at goodchatcomedy.com.
Yep.
And so I'll be doing my solo show, jokes about the time I went to prison, which is all about, my time in active addiction, my time in getting arrested, and then my life after it. It is funny. I've just taken all the most humorous moments and made fun of it, but there are some quite serious and poignant moments in it as well. So it's a show that I put a lot of work into. It got me nominated for Best Newcomer at the Melbourne Comedy Festival earlier this year.
Big
And
deal.
so, yeah, if you've got any of your listeners that are able to come to Brisbane or in Brisbane, we'd love to have you along.
And then you're going to the Gold Coast?
I'm currently in the Gold Coast right now. Yes. So yes,
When
I'm
do you
here.
leave there, mate?
Sorry.
When do you leave doing shows in the Gold Coast?
I'm only here till Saturday night. But if anyone in Brisbane wants to come to the show, love to have you along. I've still got plenty of tickets available.
Yeah, please, mate. Look, anybody who's been listening, please go and support Andrew, because as I always say, we have to support each other. And, most of our listeners are people that we relate. And most of the people that are listening to this are probably going to have a laugh, because we always like to laugh at someone else's expense.
Yes.
I don't know what it is. It's human nature. We should do a show together one day, mate. I can give you some comedy. When I escaped from prison and fucking took me 8 hours to go 2 kilometres because the tide was coming in and not leaving.
Oh, wow. Mate, I'm all ears. Yes, that sounds good.
We'll talk again. Andrew, thank you very much for coming on The Truth About Addiction. It's been a pleasure, mate.
Thanks for having me, Ron. It's been great.
And, mate, I'll contact you offline and I'll try to come down and see you during the week and watch your show.
That'd be great. Looking forward to it.
Thank you very much for The Truth About Addiction.
I solemnly swear that I will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.